Yeah, I'm really torn about that. Like, maybe you can help. Have you seen the movie Whiplash?
Mm-mm.
So it's I would say from an outsider's perspective, people should watch it. I guess jazz band. It's a movie about a drummer and the instructor, and he. It's basically, I would say, from the outsider's perspective, it's a toxic relationship, but he's really the coach, whatever we call him, pushes the musician, the drummer, to his limits, like to where he just feels like shit emotionally. It looks like a toxic relationship, but it's one that ultimately is very productive for the improvement of the musician. I have the same, like in my own experience. I got a chance to train at a couple places regularly, and so one of my coaches, who is a great human being, a lot of people love him, but when I was a blue belt, he was pushing me a lot for competition, and every time I step on the mat, I was uh, anxious and almost afraid of training because of like the places I'm gonna have to go. And then the I can't I don't know what's good or bad because I think I've become a better person because of that experience. Like I needed that. And on the flip side, like the place I got my black belt from, it's Balance Studios. I remember also a blue belt, the coach sitting down, and I was going to competition, and he saw something in me where he said, you know, like good luck, but win or lose, we always love you. Like I remember that because I really needed that at that time. Like I was putting so much pressure on myself. Like I'm not an actual professional competitor, I just competed. Like I'm a PhD student, like, but like it was clearly having a psychological effect on me. And that's what a great coach does is like, it's like life is more important than jujitsu since
That's for
it's
sure.
bigger. So they find you use jujitsu when you need it to grow as a person. And when it overwhelms you, you have to pull that person out. Like look at the bigger picture. Always look at the bigger picture. And it's fascinating, and I don't know what to make of it. I don't think I would have it any other way. Is both the anxiety and the love. Yeah,
I think that I couldn't. That's a really interesting thing that you're describing. That I guess it kind of brings me back to a lot of the other things we've been discussing. Is just almost like the reciprocal nature of everything, where no pressure. That's great. Everyone's happy all the time. It's either, I mean, let's use an example of sci-fi movies. Let's say The Matrix, which of course the first one was amazing, and then each subsequent movie made the series worse. But
they're
basically,
working on a new one, by the way.
yeah, I've heard. We'll see. I was hoping for the best. But basically, it's like, hey, we started our first initial world. Agent Smith says to Neo, he's like, our first world was a utopia where everyone was happy and nothing ever went wrong. He's like, your primitive cerebrum rejected it. And I think that there's obviously, I mean, what do I think? But I guess, well, I'm here, so I might as well say what I think. I guess, you know, great things are fantastic. A kind, gentle place is fantastic. And this is again why I love Dune, because I think Dune does such a great job of expressing. Frank Herbert does such a great job of expressing again the reciprocal nature of these ideas. Look at Sparta, for instance, or at least what I understand of Sparta from the reading and also watching 300. Um, uh, it's
And reading the Wikipedia article.
and reading the Wikipedia article about the movie,
Yeah.
not the place. But it's that's a hard, brutal place. And that was there benefit to that? Like, absolutely. Was there drawback to that? Absolutely. Is it sustainable? I would think probably not. I mean, granted, it hasn't sustained, but I mean that type of a thing, it burns too hot almost, and it destroys the host at a certain point. And I guess that type of unforgiving nature, but entirely permissive, has its own issues. And I guess coming back to your description of like describing a toxic relationship is a very dangerous and tricky thing, because it's almost like it's like bird's eye view. It's what you see, let's say a husband and a wife arguing, and you're like, all right, well, sort of somebody hitting somebody. I need to keep myself out of this because I have no idea what I'm seeing something, but I don't know what's going on or why specifically. And again, short of it going to a place that's just out of bounds, I don't know who's right here. I don't know who's wrong, and I don't know what phase of this things are in. So I guess coming
And
back,
long term, what's good for
yeah,
both people.
right. It's dangerous for. So if I want to put my finger on the scale, I can understand the desire to do it. I'm like, hey guys, let's break it up.
Yeah.
And that may be the right thing at the time, but at the same time, I'm not sure. So I think back to all of the times that that like you mentioned, your coach pushing you when very very hard, and then other times going like, hey, let's put it in perspective here. I think that's an interesting thing for high performance, and I think that we're seeing that again societally, now, or at least maybe it just pops up on my internet feed periodically. But coaches shouldn't be allowed to do this or yell at this person to yell at that person. I'm like, well, have you ever go to a boxing gym? It's not a commercial entity, not really. Like a real boxing, not LA boxing, not a UFC gym, like a real place. You're going to see what things are like when it's entirely performance based. Go to wrestling room at a high level. Again, there's left and right limits, and there are such things, obviously, as abuse, of course, and that should never be tolerated. But it's not a commercial entity. I don't need to be sweet to you if you're screwing up, if you're dropping the ball. And in fact, recognizing that I'm not doing you a favor or the team a favor by being permissive of that type of behavior, I think is important. Everything in its context and at its time is important. And I guess I can think again of the times that I've been put on me like a great deal of pressure to do X, Y, or Z or to succeed, or to push for success. And I can't look back fondly enough on those times. They were tough at the time, but without that, I'm not sitting here. Without that, I don't go from growing up in a very nice family in the suburbs to fighting at the highest level in jiu-jitsu, gi, no gi, and now in mixed martial arts, starting a career at age 27. I don't, it just doesn't happen because people, generally speaking, from that background don't get pushed hard enough physically to be able to make that transition. And that has benefits and it has drawbacks. When you stare into the abyss, it stares back. And I think that that's an important thing to understand. You stare long enough, you can become something that you would be sorry that you did. You don't look enough and you don't have perspective either. And I think that that's an interesting thing. I can speak to someone who's relatively articulate and reasonable. I try to be reasonable, but I'll say in sparring, if people get crazy with me, they get a warning and then I'm gonna crack them. And what did they expect? Oh, they hear the guy on an interview, but who did they think they were meeting? Because there's also the guy in the ring.